Well, it's not working in prod. Indeed, it's not working in prod. Well, it's not my problem. It works just fine on my machine and on the dev server. Well, I told you all systems are ISOs. And if it's working in dev, it's working in prod. It's ISO? Oh, yeah. Essentially, I mean, pretty much almost. Almost? What do you mean, almost? You know, there's maybe a very small gap in minor versions. And for some plugins. Nothing particularly important.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a good holiday, good New Year. But I'm super excited to have this show today. I got two of my favorite people on. But yeah. So, anyways, this is a great way to kick off the new year. Thanks for joining. It looks like it's a bunch of folks, some regulars in the chat. If you would say hello in the chat, we'd love to see who we're talking to. But anyways, today I have Uwe and Ben on. They're on the product team here at Docker. Uwe is the Senior Director of Product Management here at Docker. Before that, she worked at Cloud Foundry for 6 years. That's super interesting. I got a bunch of questions on that. Maybe we'll have another talk around that. But and Ben's a product manager focusing on developer experience. He used to work on Amazon Alexa. He knows all the inside, the secrets, all the bugs. He's shown me a couple of bugs before and some really cool features. I'll be nice to our lovely partners. But and Ben has the dog as big as a bear, as some say. Is this true, Ben?
Not quite as big as a bear. So he's now he's 11 months old and he's now about 120 pounds, 130 pounds.
That's huge.
Yeah, he'll finish up at about 160, 170 pounds.
160 pounds?
Somewhere in that region, or between 160 and 180. So he's a Leonberger, so he's like a mountain dog. But yeah, if for anyone that attended last year's DockerCon and got the dev survey, the last question in the developer survey after DockerCon was a picture of me and my dog, and you had to guess his weight at the time.
And at the time, he wasn't. How much was he then?
Like 40, 50 pounds.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's
pounds.
a big dog still. It's a medium, decent size.
Did anyone guess correctly?
A bunch of people, actually. Yeah. And then a bunch of people, like in the because we had one more comment after that. A lot of people then in that comment were just like surprised that he was a dog. Like a couple of, I think there's a comment like, that's not a dog, it's a sheep. It's not a dog, it's a bear. Someone said, I liked your shoes. I was very complimented by that.
Yui, do you have any animals, any dogs?
No, but we are preparing to get a hamster. My daughter's birthday is coming up, and she has requested a hamster, and so we're getting supplies and things, and trying to make sure there's a lovely home for the hamster that we're getting.
Awesome. Well, I was just over the weekend. I was cleaning out my attic in the garage attic, and my oldest daughter used to have a hamster, and we have a bunch of cages and all kinds of stuff. Maybe I'll box it up and just send it to you because I don't want it. And I have a horrible story to tell. I thought it was funny. We were doing a getting to know once with a team. I might have been a team here at Docker. But I told the story of this hamster escaped from the cage, and we couldn't find it, and it always happens, right? And then one time we just couldn't find it, and it was just left. And I thought that was kind of humorous, and everybody kind of looked at me like, what happened to the hamster? And yeah, my wife said, no, don't tell that story. That's a horrible story. So I feel bad. Anyways, we eventually found the hamster, but yeah, it was missing for like a day. It was hidden in a couch back in the corner. Awesome. Okay, cool. So I wanted to kind of talk about first kind of, we've had a full year with kind of the new Docker. But maybe when you guys could tell me and talk a little bit about our Docker's vision, our focus, where we're kind of looking to go in the next year.
Ben, do you want to go first?
Ben, you want to go?
Yeah,
all right.
So the focus on new Docker is very much on developers. And we know that you all love working with containers. But we also know that everything's not quite perfect. We know that containers solved bunch of issues for people. We know it added a load of new challenges in how you work, and there's a lot of opportunities to do more with containers to make things even easier. So the focus for the next year is how do we actually take the experience you have today with Docker Desktop, with Docker Engine, with Docker Hub, and turn that into something that's magical and remove some of those pain points that you had to sort of accept or live with when you move over to containers. So how do we improve build? How do we improve the speed, the consistency, make it easy to get started with that? How do we make it easier to share things when you're working with image? I mean, images are a great way to share individual things.
Yeah, work with your team members and things like that.
Yeah.
How do we extend share beyond single images as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what, I mean, I'm a developer 25 years, right? And I've gone different roles, but I've always kind of I like to stay close to that keyboard. And that's what, I mean, excites me about Docker, right? Is they really focused on developers, really helping them use containers in all aspects, just not in operations, right? Just not in day two memory consumption, those type of things. And it's interesting how the industry is moving. Maybe we'll get there. Read a cool article the other day on how ops and DevOps and development, you know, it's a little fluid, right? It's going to be interesting over the next couple of years at how that shakes out, and then it'll change again. But but yeah, so rolling into the new year with our new focus, right? And actually looking back at last year, one of the other things that was very interested in kind of what you're talking about, a focus back on developers and making things easy, was the Compose spec, releasing the open source and the Compose spec. I think, Ben, you've been involved in that a lot. What, you know, how's the community taken that, embraced that last year, and how did things go last year with the Compose spec and releasing it, open sourcing it, and those things?
Yeah, so I think it was maybe March last year, we opened up the Compose spec. A big part of that was that we wanted to give the community more control over the future of the Compose spec. We really wanted everyone to feel that we weren't going to do something funky with it, and that it had sort of a very agnostic future. We want Compose to be the best way for developers to work with multi-container applications. Since it's been a spec in the community, we've done quite a few things. So now there's no version in the Compose spec. Instead, the implementations of services or platforms or whatever's implementing Compose essentially just respect which features in there that they respect. And more recently, we added profiles into Compose, which are a really cool way of splitting between sort of your dev and your production run using your Compose file. And along with that, we had the cloud partnerships as well, which sort of came along with that opening it up as a spec.
Yeah, that rolls right into the cloud, the CLI. I mean, again, that's I think it's one of the coolest things we released last year. I know it was a long, you know, we'd worked on it for a while, but yeah, I mean, going right from the tool chain that you know to right into the cloud is awesome.
And I think some of those cloud integrations, I was just talking with developer earlier this week who was like, I really love Docker Compose for my local development. He's at a startup and he's like, how could I use this to do my production deploy? And he's using Docker Compose with the ECS integration to do his production deploy. And that's just awesome to hear.
Yeah, I saw your notes internally and I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that, and just to our audience, if there's anybody out there using our CLI integrations, either into ECS or ACS, reach out to us. Reach out to me on Twitter, and the PM team here on Twitter. Probably Twitter's the best, I would say, or actually our roadmap. I'll put that up real quick. You know, go to our roadmap, and find the issues, join in the conversation. That's the best way to kind of get involved with us. Okay, guys. So you got to keep me honest, right? Because every live stream, I always say, go to the roadmap, and I say our product team, our product marketing team, our product management team is in there. They watch the stories. They have discussions. Like we use that. Am I lying? Am I crazy?
You're not lying.
Yeah, we spend 40 minutes debating through it as a group, and I think all of us read it every week. So I'm in there. If you tag me on things, I'll eventually respond as well. So my GitHub alias is the same as my Twitter alias. You should see us in there commenting, reacting, moving things around, and being part of that discussion as well.
Yeah, cool. And then we had security scanning. Huge, super interesting, right? And again, I got to admit, right, I'm one of those developers that wait for security scanning and everything till last minute. right? You're getting ready to go to production. You're like, oh, that's right. We got to go into this meeting with security, and they're going to cry, and they're going to scan our stuff, and we're going to have to, right? And so this makes it just so much easier shifting left. I mean, security's not easy, right? But a little more accessible, I'd say. Yeah. Yeah. And in Hub. Yeah.
I kind of I like how the integration does show you like the next steps, like how might you remediate some of these things. So it can point you to like, oh, well, this is due to a dependency that and the update is available. And so, you know, could you just update that dependency and not worry about it anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Here's Crazy Max. You guys know Crazy Max, but he's talking about going fully agnostic. Build, X, bake, and compose everything. Crazy Max is one of our captains. Good to see you, Crazy Max.
Yeah, Build, X, bake is massively underused. Like, it's really cool. It's kind of like Make, but for just Dockerized workflows. And I know a lot of people are using just Make files for entirely Dockerized workflows. So yeah, Build, X, bake is massively underused, and I'd love to see that used more. We might play with that more this year coming up as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping we like work on documentation a bit more, like more use cases. If Crazy Max would like to help contribute to that, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, Ben and I were just talking offline before we jumped in, and yeah, I mean, I have that problem, right, of really diving deep into BuildX and Buildkit and Bake, right, and really understanding it. And yeah, and to be honest, yeah, our documentation and tutorials are kind of lacking in that area. Yeah, so Crazy Max, I might hit you up. Cool. So okay, one of the other favorite things I like is the Delta updates. That's huge, right? Especially, I mean, in what I do, right? I'm changing versions. I was on Edge, I was on Stable a lot, right? And now, well, just what are Delta updates? What does that bring to us?
Yeah, so we decided to move away from having Edge and Stable to having more of like feature flags. And we now sort of doing more like canary updates for new things and trying to actually segment things off as experimental for longer, but give everyone the opportunity to use them if they like. The actual Delta updates was a change in how we do the updates. So historically, when you updated Docker Desktop, what we actually did was we pretty much uninstalled the old version, preserved your VM, and installed a new version. What we do now is from one version to the next. I'm sure there is PR to improve the BuildX docs. What we do now, going from one version to the next, is we actually create a binary diff on the application. So rather than downloading like the full 500 meg application, your update should be like 20 or 30 meg most of the time. I was a little disappointed. We got ready for the binary update. We did the first release. We were ready for the next update to be a binary update. And then we changed the base image in the part of the base image in the desktop VM, and the Delta was still like 100 megabytes. And I was really sad because I was so excited to get like an update that was only like 10 megabytes. Never mind. The updates are now much smaller. So it should be a lot less painful to install, and it should be a lot more consistent in the update flows. I'd also seen that people were having issue because that uninstall reinstall was could have issues with services not stopping or things like that. So we also sort of tidied up the update logic in there as well. So hopefully it'll improve the overall update experience for everyone. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, it's been working great for me. I love seeing the little indicator that I have an update. It's like, yes, go. Yeah, cool. All right.
And I was just going to say, I'm excited to like be able to get some of the new things that we're working to more people more quickly. So that I've heard some folks say like you learn Docker and then you stop learning Docker and then that's all. But we are working on a lot of improvements, and I'm hoping like the more that we can have these regular updates, the more that's across the broad base of our users like available and true, then people can start to adopt and give us feedback on where else we should go and improve. But like just having that broad base of, oh, okay, most people actually do have this experimental feature now, and so they can go try it and give us feedback on it, or most people have this stable version of this thing out now. So really excited about that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, you talk about what's coming new. What's this Delta updates allows us to get new updates to our users. What are you excited about in the new year? What's on our roadmap that you just can't sleep at night. You keep thinking about this.
I mean, I think the M1 excitement, like the support for M1 is pretty exciting. Like we've had some overwhelmingly positive engagement on our previews with that, and like the bug reports are coming in still, and we've got a few more things to do to get that to parity. But it's just really exciting that we can support people to do development with Docker on their favorite laptops and hardware, and the time, the build times and things, the performance improvements, people have been really glowing about what that looks like with M1. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. I have I just got an email saying mine has shipped and should be here next week. It's like little extra Christmas present for January that I'm kind of happy about. Yeah, I think just speeding everything up and the power consumption, right? Especially with a lot of it's not to me, it's important, right? With us being all remote, everybody's on laptops, right? Power consumption is important, right? And speed on the laptop. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Looking at the feedback we get about like Mac, Docker desktop on Mac, like almost always it's about performance. So just like by switching to a different architecture, like it's going to be improved a bit that way. Like we're still going to be working on generally for traditional architecture, but still. That's really exciting that we could start to address it that way.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what we can get out of the new hypervisor framework, to see if there's any other improvements there. Yeah, going to the M1 combined with solving at least some of our CPU issues, which we've had for a while on Mac. I know that there are still more out there, and I'm not saying we've got them all, but I think last year we identified 6 or 7 reasons why we were getting sort of the random 100% CPU spikes, which have now been solved. There are more coming, but part of the reason that we moved over to gRPC Fuse was that it solved a bunch of those for us, for all of you. So yeah, that combined with the move to M1 with the new hypervisor framework, and we might unlock there, and what Apple might also do there over the next sort of few years and add to that, is really exciting to see what we can do on Mac, and hopefully we can start to lift that performance and improvement and start to get it a bit back nearer what we can do now on Windows with WSL2.
Yeah.
Which, remembering WSL2 did go GA last year as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, which was huge for us, right? They brought in the Windows Home users, right? Yep. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I think with the M1, and maybe just Mac in general, the Mac OS as compared to Linux, right? It was always a balance to me, right? How much is speed an issue, but the experience I get on the Mac, right, with just the other apps and stuff it's like that balancing, and a lot of the work that the team has done last year has kind of started to make that a little bit more equal, and then this some of the hardware improvements hopefully even it out, right? I know I talked to some folks that are running on Linux, right, and sometimes I think we think, oh well, it's just, it's a very combative discussion, right? You have your camps, right? It's tribal, I guess I should say. And but a lot of folks are just saying, we do a lot of Docker, do a lot of containers, do a lot of compiling. Just the speed, I really need the speed of being native. And I definitely see that, right? But then what the Mac brings you, just the user experience is a lot more smoother, in my opinion. When I first went to Mac OS, it was the Linux desktop that I wanted, right?
Yeah, I mean, even now, I think the 5th highest item in the public roadmap in regards to reactions and votes is Docker Desktop for Linux.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm honestly, I'm not playing devil's advocate here, right? Is it, what is that? What's driving that, right? Because, I might be I don't understand the problem fully, right? I think, well, if you're on Linux, just install Docker locally, right? And go. But, yeah, talk a little bit about that. What's the big driver for that?
There's some great conversation actually on the ticket, which is where we've got a lot of that, as well as feedback from our captains and from other interviews I've done. So there's a handful of areas. The first one is that Docker Desktop kind of gives you like a guaranteed turnkey installation. Like you turn the key and desktop's there and it works, and all the bits of Docker are there. It's engine, it's a CLI, it's compose, it's the plugins, all of them are there in one opinionated installer. And that sort of guaranteed install is the first thing people would like. Along with that, the actual updating of the engine and keeping everything up to date and secure, handling all of that for you is sort of the second thing. The third thing is actually an interesting one, which is that where Docker Desktop runs in a VM, though there's kind of a file system performance, there's an isolation benefit there. So you've got very much control over what the Docker daemon can access in the first instance is what's exposed to the VM. So there's a level of sort of there's that level, and being in a VM also means it's all isolated into a particular part of your machine, which is easy to remove. So if we do Docker Desktop on Linux, those are things to consider. There's also then a trade-off there against performance, as you highlight. The Mac, we have that challenge in particular with the file system performance. So there is a trade-off to get that benefit. And then lastly, you've got the UI aspects of Docker. So the UI management of running the daemon, the UI management of your containers and images, which is quite new. And weaved in with all of that is the install of Kubernetes, which comes with it, which is quite a vanilla Kubernetes, which is from Kube DM. Install of that, which is also managed as an install and can be sort of one click turned on and off, kind of that just-in-time download and install of that as well. So there's actually a lot to desktop beyond just putting the engine and the CLI onto your machine. And that gap has grown over like the last 3-4 years of having Docker Desktop. And really the Linux community is saying, can you originally desktop was just there to get a Linux VM onto the machine, which we didn't really see the upside for. It looked more like a negative, and put the Docker onto there. But actually everything we've had to build around that and have expanded on that has started to add quite a lot of incremental value that a lot of people would appreciate.
It's sometimes I forget, where I'm at and a lot of the roles I'm at is I'm, on the edge looking forward, right? Manually configuring and messing with everything and trying to fully understand it. But developers day to day, they don't want to do that, right? They want it to work, and I need to get my work done. And then when it breaks, I might dive a little. Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, cool. And in multi-architecture builds, jumping back into Buildkit a little bit. Sorry. With the ARM and Buildkit being a first, we promoted that to be what would you say? What's the terminology? I'll just, instead of me messing it up, babbling around, because I'm not won't succinctly say what we've done with Buildkit and how that shifted into the main line. But yeah, that's exciting to me. I don't have to go set settings anymore.
Buildkit isn't default yet on Docker Desktop, and or with I think it's for new things, but not like how can we deprecate the other 2 or 3 things that do a very similar thing. And so I'm hoping this year we can invest in getting Buildkit to be default in Docker Desktop, and then moving that along also upstream as well, so that we can start to retire some of those older things, and that again will just be default true. People can expect that to be available and default on across all of the Docker Desktop installs.
Yeah, and so talking about deprecating things, not to talk about a little negative slide, but we released the CLI integrations, and so we had Docker Space Compose, and then we have Docker Dash Compose. How do you see that shaking out? Yeah,
I'd love Ben's thoughts on this.
So Docker Dash Compose has existed for quite a while, right? Like it started off as Fig, and it was then released as Docker Dash Compose. It's written in Python, and it's standalone from the CLI. What we're doing now is we're rewriting Compose in Go, so it's hopefully a bit more accessible to people who want to integrate with it. And we're moving that over to Docker Space just for consistency, but we're also going to try and make it a reasonably consistent experience. No, don't go with Python.
It's Crazy Max chiming in. I'm going to kick you out, Crazy Max. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, Go is greater than Python. It's all right. It's all right. He's corrected himself. Good.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. Good.
There we go. Okay.
Good. Yeah. So that move is just to provide sort of a level of consistency, and also to bring that new version of. We're going to keep both of those versions of Compose in line with the Compose spec for now, but eventually we'll be looking at migrating over to Docker Space Compose in Go, and that's sort of the longer term plan there. I've got a peril of working from home has arrived.
Yes, you're a pair programmer.
Exactly. It's definitely not a dog, but
yeah, that doesn't look like a bear.
No.
My cat looks like a bear, but that digress. We digress. Well, yeah, and how do you guys think about deprecating features, right? Like we have such a huge user base, and it's not only just me working locally, right? Like our Docker and our tool chain is tied into CI/CD, into production, right? So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts just in general, like and how we think of new features and deprecating and moving users and what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still somewhat new around these parts, but I'm hoping like it's being transparent about the plans as soon as you can be, and then allowing for appropriate time windows and paths for transition, right? So if you start to default to Buildkit as the default builder, then how can you opt out of that and allow for a period of time for people to transition? And if we can be transparent about when might we start removing that, when's the real removal date, that kind of thing. So I think a lot of this for us is how can we be transparent and provide transition paths and things like that. But Ben, you've been around here for a bit longer than me. What do you think? Is that right?
Ben, you've been here 10 years, 10 years. No,
not quite. I completely agree. Like a big part of opening up a public roadmap was we wanted to be more transparent. Like we knew before we tried to do, we're going to do this secret project and we're going to surprise everyone and it'll be awesome. We'll do like selective this and selective that. We wanted to just try and be as open on what we're doing when we're doing it as we can. And if you look in the roadmap, there are already some things in there that are flagged for deprecation very publicly, and that we're open that we're working on those and there is a plan. Pick one example, Kitematic. We will be deprecating Kitematic this year, hopefully, when we've got enough in the existing UI and we have an answer for our Linux users of where they can go. We will, when we've got enough parity in the new Docker dashboard, we will deprecate Kitematic. And there's a dialogue on that ticket around the sorts of things people would like to see moved over before we do that and the sorts of features people think we should have. That's an open dialogue because there's a cost to us supporting it, which will slow us down implementing new features and getting those over. So there is a trade-off. But that's an example of where we are being I hope, being open on what the intentions are for that in other projects. As we say, it's providing that migration path, it's providing that opportunity for users to move over in plenty of time, and giving them those options. Yeah,
and this is a great, and I didn't do this on purpose, but also here real quick, a plug for our community. Join the community, right? And join in the discussion, right? So if we do moving to deprecate things and you're using them, join the communities. Our captains are in there, our product teams in there, our engineers are in there, right? Folks will be in there to help, right? And help you move along the path, right? Awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. This is my favorite topic. Sorry, I've been kind of rushing to get to it, but the inner loop. What the heck is the inner loop? We talk about it here. We talk about it here at Docker. I think I say it, but what's the inner loop? What the heck are you guys talking about when you're like, oh, we're gonna focus on the inner loop a little?
Well, then you also need to talk about what's outer loop. Then, if there's an inner loop, what's the outer loop? Begs
the question.
Yeah. So this was I don't know who coined the phrase. I hadn't actually seen it till I came to Docker. So inner loop is the process of creating a code change, doing your unit tests, running it locally, testing and debugging it locally, and then all the way getting ready to do a git commit. Outer loop is the flow of from sort of that point where your git commit goes out, going into Git, ideally that going into a CI process, which does builds, and that then rolling into CD, being pushed to production, and then any feedback from production. So bugs, issues, analytics, or data coming back, which re-inspire new things in that inner loop. So very much the inner loop is that piece that you do creatively in your IDE when you want to create new things or debug something or find the root cause to an issue. And the outer loop is a process that takes that value and gets it verified, built, and then shipped out to your customers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So the inner loop, what are you excited about? What are you thinking about that you can talk about? I know we just talked about being open, and I'm not referring to, any secret features, but we also, being careful, like we don't want to shoot off in like a bunch of tangents and then people get excited about something. We're like, well, we were just really thinking about that. We're over here. So so that's what I mean with what you want to talk about. But I know we've kicked around. I think I've talked to both of you about inner loop and ideas and, but yeah, where's Docker exploring right now, and maybe some things that might be coming?
Yeah, I mean, one of the smaller things is just that defaulting to Buildkit, because you do get faster builds with Buildkit, and so that'll, just because you get faster builds, you can validate that more quickly. Whether your code change locally does the thing that you expect it to, or learn that it didn't do the thing, and so that, I think that'll have returns. Ben, what else do you think we should talk about?
I would say real quick, I love it, right? The Buildkit. I was just doing this yesterday, building a tutorial, and I was just changing code real quick. I mean, the Buildkit is so fast. Maybe I'll put something on the roadmap that says, if nothing's changed, you don't have to show me all the steps. Just go to the command line, right? It might take longer to print out all the steps than the actual the build. It is really fast, and I'm on a Mac, so I was very impressed. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the inner loop, there's kind of a few different areas we're looking at. So we're looking at the build. Both how can we make it faster? How can we make it easier? How can we make multi-stage builds easier? How can we make it easier to do multi-stage build testing or testing in your build? And there's a load of stuff there. You've then got local running, or running to debug things. Like, I know that people run some things locally. Some people run those things on a remote instance. How can we make that sharing of those running instances to debug things, or pair work in particular, as you're trying to debug things together, easier? And what I'm really keen on solving is people that end up just debugging via the CI. I don't like the process of having to try and make something work, and I do a git push. And I wait and the CI fails, and then I have to make another change. And by like the fifth change, I feel very sad, because I've now got this like 4 or 5 failed things in the CI, and like the fifth one just says, I want the CI to work now. And there's a lot of reasons why people end up debugging via the CI, and I think there's some cool ones there that we can look at addressing, that can help make it easier to move some of the challenges, that the reason that you can't test those things locally in your inner loop, and you're pushed to like almost do your development and your debugging for your development in the outer loop. I think we can bring them right back in.
Yeah. And
then one thing I'm keen to revisit is using Compose against Kubernetes. So we used to have Compose on Kube, which required installing something on Kubernetes. I'm very keen, given the work we've done in the Docker context and the backends there, to look at how we can do something much more like we're doing with ECS, where we're effectively doing a conversion from Compose to CloudFormation. How we can look at including something like that for Compose to Kube YAML as part of the Docker CLI.
Yeah.
I think that'd be very cool to do.
Yeah, I imagine if you put that on the investigating part of our public roadmap, Ben, you might get some likes and upvotes and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super, and Ben and you and I know definitely talk. Debugging, building your images, right? And debugging CI is just a nightmare, right? Like if it's up and running and it's going and you make a quick change, that's different than actually setting it up, trying to build your CI, debugging it. I mean, it's impossible, right? That loop in your inner loop of make a change, debug, run, debug, and it's a nightmare, right? And I just read a great article the other day, and I forget who it was, but and I've mentioned this thought online here before, and this isn't my attempt to beat up Kubernetes by any stretch of the imagination. I love it, right? But as technology progresses, right, things will get easier and easier and easier, and the abstractions go higher. But I love that idea of getting composed, readdressing that right back with Kubernetes, right? The learning curve is so huge. That's a lot of our tools that point into ECS and ACI are trying to address that problem, right, of the learning curve. But yeah, that'd be super interesting to get compose running on Kube, right? Even if it's, well, I shouldn't say, but even running locally, developing, right? My inner loop, right? That all have all those things running early. So maybe later down you have, you know, it's a little different, right? You're using Helm or whatever. But yeah, I think that'd be huge, huge.
I would also like to do it via Helm.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. God, more YAML. Are we ever going to get, all right, I have to confess, I'm going to kill all, my goal is to kill all YAML by 2025. No one's on board anyways.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've seen the shirts about being YAML maintainers, professional YAML architects, and things like that.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. Yeah, someone said the other day the code of the web is YAML, right? Yeah, which is true. It's just me. It's just me, you know, old and not wanting, you know, the little quirks in the language. But anyways,
I mean, on the Docker Compose topic, you know, thoughts were like, you know, could we work on something where like a simple compose file could be uploaded next to your image, so that, or you know, or things that we could do in terms of helping people to more easily build out the compose file, making use of those images or that sort of thing. Those are some things that we're looking at to see if like that could simplify the experience and make it easier for people to take advantage of the stuff.
Yeah. So sharing more things, right, through Hub and.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Did we lose you? Oh no.
Yes. Sharing more things through Hub, making the information there more useful. Like, you know, could we get the tags synced up from images to releases on GitHub? There's a lot of ideas of things that we could do to make understanding what those things are and how to make use of them, make that better.
Yeah. Cool. You were going to say something, Ben?
I was pretty much going to agree. Like, there's two sides. Like, there's making it easier to create compose files in the first place. Like, I see that in the NPS scores every now and then for desktop. People saying, "Hey, can we have a compose file builder?" And then once you've got that, like, how do you say, okay, this compose files for these images? How do I bring all of that together? Like, my application, the value to my customers is all of these things together. Like, standalone, one doesn't help. Like, just the back end doesn't do a lot for people if they can't get to the front end. So how do we help you group all that value and have all that value in one place together and understand it and attack it as a single thing? That's going to be a cool thing to try and address.
Yeah. Like, if you've got an elk stack or something like that, how do you put that all together?
Yeah. You're back. Your screen froze for a second. Good. You're back.
Oh, okay. I have no idea what people would replace YAML with.
Yeah. Was that he's questioning me. I agree. I mean, I think configuration and simple defaults, right? Just look at all. I'm sorry, I don't have a pure example off the top of my head, right? But that's just the progression of technology, right? We used to use brooms, now we use sweepers, right? It's what would replace the sweeper, right? Now we have robots, right? Vacuum cleaner. I got to make sure this. Yeah. What do you guys call vacuum cleaner? A sweeper, or is that me? Vacuum cleaner. Okay. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer about it. YAML's fine. I'm slightly kidding, but it can get complex and finicky, I guess would be and God, I don't want to go to JSON, even though you can use JSON, but more curly brackets everywhere. And yeah, just too verbose. But again,
it's not about replacing YAML, and it's not about providing abstractions of abstractions, or it's not providing a new standard to replace the old standards. And now there are 5 standards because everyone loves that XKCD. We know people like Compose. We know people are using Compose for their inner loop dev. We know we want to build a bridge out of there. We know that there is a need from operators to have fine-grained control, and we know that YAML is actually a pretty good format for specifying all of those things. So it's just about finding the right bridges, the right abstraction, the right automation for some of those things, and providing the right points where you can break glass to get into that detail when you really need it. That's sort of what we're looking to do rather than replace it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do with the ECS experience. Recently, we added the ability to actually just have an extension in there where you can effectively, at the bottom of your Compose file, for anything we've not added support for, you can now just write CloudFormation for anything we've not added in as a particular supported thing yet, which is quite a nice break glass for people who need that bit more power and want the ops part at the bottom while they've got that local configuration at the top. So that's quite elegant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, awesome. Again, thank you guys for coming on, but I want to wrap up with kind of this question. And Yui, why don't I ask you first? What do you see in the industry? What are you excited about? Who are you watching? Right? Where do you think we might be going this year? And not just with Docker, but kind of the developer experience tool sets, or just anything in general. I'd love to just hear your vision a little bit.
Well, I'm excited about I guess people in groups that I'm watching, like obviously watching the Kubernetes space, as they like kind of look at Helm or not Helm, as the case may be. There's still a lot of discussion out there, even though there's overwhelming usage of Helm and there's overwhelming usage of Compose, and there's lots of other things out there. So trying to keep an eye on that. And then like what are the other abstractions that, I mean, people don't want to program against Kubernetes generally. So like, how do we get it so that developers can focus on building their applications and not worry so much about the tooling. The tooling, my vision is like, how can you make the tooling boring?
Yeah.
Boring, dependable. It does what you need to do. You don't have to worry about all of the intricacies so much of like, oh, I want to deploy to AWS, and so I need to know these specific things. There's like compatibility across the clouds. There's always going to be specific things on each of the clouds, but like what are those abstractions like? How can we simplify that, have sensible defaults, allow you to, break glass and do more complicated things as you can, but like, have tooling be boring in a way.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think that's what we all desire, right? Like if my tools are getting in my way, then there's a problem, right? If my tool just works, if I pick up my screwdriver and unscrew the screw, cool, right? If I gotta use an electric one, I gotta fiddle with the battery, I have the right, I don't know. That's a horrible analogy, but yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, so I agree with the theme of what you were just saying. Like any developer tool should reduce the number of like boring or repetitive or mundane tasks that a developer's doing, and should give them more time to actually just create completely new experiences and change things for their customers. Any developer tool that isn't achieving that is probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So what excites me to look at this year? I know Amis put it in the chat, but actually serverless is one of the things I'm excited to look at and think what we can do, like between serverless and Compose, and extending what we've done with those cloud partnership, the cloud integrations already, like where that could go with serverless.
Yeah.
And what the future there holds.
Like people are still learning about serverless, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that it's really interesting. I really like it. Prior to Docker, I had a customer that was doing a lot of serverless, but it's hard. The tooling's hard. It's difficult. It's clunky, right? And yeah, anything we can do there to improve that is huge, right? Huge. Well, awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, I really, really appreciate you guys coming on. We'll have to do this more often. Maybe we can do a product corner or I don't know, someone smarter than me can think of a better marketing term, but love to have you guys on maybe once a quarter or whatever, and just talk about what's going on and where we're going and heading and all those things. But thank you so much, Yui.
Yeah, thank you.
Yui, where can folks find you online? I know I have something here. Let me pull it up.
Yes, you can find me there on Twitter. That's Yui Cow on Twitter, or you can find me in the Docker community Slack as
Awesome.
well.
Awesome. And Ben, likewise?
You can find me on Twitter on Nebok89. That's also my handle on GitHub. So if you want to tag me on tickets, I will try and keep an eye on them. And I'm also in the community Slack, but I use my full name, which is a lot longer, which is Ben de Saint-Pergoch. Just looking at the chat, Lucas, if you want to drop me a tweet about the Windows stuff, like I'd love to chat more about the challenges you're having, particularly on the network stuff for Windows. Like I thought the changes we made at the start of this year, where we removed, because we removed the VNAT that we created in Docker Desktop at the start of the year, even for the non-WSL2 implementation. So I'm curious how it's having an impact on the other VMs. So yeah, I'd love to chat through that more with you to understand that in more detail. Yeah, awesome. So reach out to me on one of those many platforms.
That's an awesome segue. Again, I'll put up the Docker community. Go out, join the Docker community, get into our Slack. Our meetups are starting up. We have a thriving meetup community around the world. Please join the Slack. A lot of great folks.
DockerCon.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, DockerCon is when? May?
Oh, wow. May. You can pre-register.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow.
May 27th? Is it May 27th? I just registered.
It's May 27th. That is correct. Let me get it up on the. If I can.
DockerCon.
DockerCon ad.
Go
Docker. Sorry. Yeah, go. There's the URL. Go pre-register, sign up. Yes. We're going to be opening up CFPs soon, to watch out for that. Submit your talk. Yeah, we're really excited about this year. I think we're going to have some really, really good stuff. Yeah, awesome. Well, again, join the community. Take a look at our roadmap. You can follow me on Twitter, just P McKee. Reach out to me, just like reach out to everybody. Honestly, we want to hear from you. We want to make sure we're helping you do your jobs as easy as possible using our tool chain. So, guys, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It's been fun. I could keep you on here forever, but I know you guys got actual work to do. You just have me chatting away, asking silly questions. But I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Thanks for everybody watching live. And have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Peter. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.